Lego bricks are known for a few things. They're fun, they hurt to step on, and they click together in the most satisfying way possible. However, some Lego sets tell you not to attach pieces together. In fact, there are a lot of surprising uses for loose bricks that don't connect to anything else. So let's explore Lego sets that use loose bricks in very clever ways. Over the years, LEGO has released several brick-built versions of real-world tech, and 2025's Game Boy set with 421 parts might just be the most accurate to date, both in terms of detail and size. Just look how similar they are. The shape and size are perfect, the hologram display is awesome, and all of the buttons and knobs feel great under your thumbs, which is exactly where the LEGO designers pulled off a great little trick. A bit over halfway through the build on step 69, you'll put together this small section, featuring the unique printed start and select bricks, and attach it to the rest of the set. A few pages later, on step 78, you'll add this other small assembly, leaving a gap exactly the shape and size of the two labeled buttons. Jump to step 108, and you'll need to pull out two of these small rubber tires, which are available here in this dark bluish gray color for the first time. These two tires fit snugly into the gaps you left behind a few pages ago, and are a perfect recreation of the original handheld's rubbery buttons. The only thing holding these two pieces in place is the friction between the rubber and the surrounding plastic, but that's more than enough. So while these bricks aren't technically loose, they don't have any true connections to the rest of the build. Another set to pull a somewhat similar trick is the Tudor Corner, also from 2025. Like the rest of LEGO's modular buildings, this set is full of fun techniques and clever builds, but today I'm mostly interested in these black lines at the top of the build. At first glance, they might not stand out too much, but if you look a bit closer, you'll quickly realize that those angles are pretty unusual, and certainly not normal for LEGO. So how'd they pull it off? Well, about 3/4 of the way through the build, starting on step 401, you'll put a few of these little assemblies together, creating a slight angle. On the very next step, you'll build a few more, featuring the opposite angle and leaving a small gap between the two sections. Cut to step 405, and you'll now need to put together 4 modified 2x2 plates and an equal number of black 1x2 grill plates. These then slide perfectly into the gap left behind, while the raised grill plates hold everything else in place. Much like the Game Boy, these aren't loose per se in the final build, but they don't have any stud connections. This isn't the only example of some loose pieces in this set though. A bit later on in the build, on steps 435 and 436, the instructions call for 2 of these printed 1x1 round tiles, featuring a tiny beetle. These pieces are then loosely slid into a clear 2x1 brick to represent a terrarium before being put on the shelf. These small tiles fit perfectly inside of these hollow bricks, and this is a technique that LEGO has been using more and more often over the last few years. We can actually see the exact same idea taken a little bit further in the City of Lanterns build from 2022. The bubble tea stand from this set has a few neat features. Just check out step 267 to see what I mean. This step tells you to carefully place 7 1x1 round tiles into this tall, clear Lego piece, which will eventually form the storefront and create a truly unique look. An almost identical technique is used in the White Dragon Horse Jet from 2021. Just take a look at this. The first thing that you build in this set is this vending machine, which features several possible items that a lucky customer can get their hands on. This step makes use of the same building technique as the bubble tea shop and uses 7 printed round tiles inside of a clear column. These are meant to show off the contents of the machine just like any real-world equivalent. As neat as that is, the real magic happens behind the scenes. By sliding in a 1x2 smartphone tile included in this set, any minifigure can receive a random jar from the machine. What's even cooler though is that this thing also accepts cash. Well, the 1x2 printed money tiles that are so common in LEGO City, that is. Now, a fun use of some loose bricks appears in the Shadow the Hedgehog bus set, where you'll need to add in 3 of these rings in bright yellow as an obvious reference to the fact that the Sonic games are all about going fast and collecting rings. Once these are added, they get covered up immediately, never to be seen again, but if you ever pick up and shake this set, you can hear them rattle inside. Another neat pop culture reference appears in the surprisingly detailed Wicket the Ewok from 2025. With 1,010 parts, this little guy is a great display piece with some very clever designs. One of the funniest bits though comes at the very end. After putting everything together, you'll be left with a single white 3x3 round tile. This loose piece can actually be held in Wicket's hand to represent the snack that Princess Leia gives him when they first meet. This is such a fun little detail that LEGO decided to include. There's also an interesting addition in the Office set from 2022. This set was a smash hit with fans of the show, thanks to a few clever references included, and one of them uses loose bricks. At the beginning of Bag 3, you'll need to add 4 loose studs to a trash can. While you may think that these studs represent pieces of trash, this is actually a reference to one of the show's most iconic opening gags pertaining to Kevin's famous chili, which he spills all over the carpet in the office. Granted, this is a relatively small number of loose parts, and LEGO does this a lot more frequently than you may expect, such as in the Jungle Abomination set from the Minecraft line. On step 19, you'll build a small chest and fill it with 3 green studs. This sort of thing happens all the time in LEGO, with chests being filled with gold studs, tiles, gems, and more. One of my favorites is this safe from the Gold Heist set released in 2009 under the Space Police 3 banner. The set includes the super cool 4-armed alien named Frenzy. I personally remember building this set as a kid, and as the name suggests, the safe is filled with very valuable gold bars. Turning to some of LEGO's many vehicles, the Technic Concrete Mixer Truck from 2020 comes with a total of 1,163 parts, and is perhaps most well known for its 2 massive shell pieces used to build the concrete mixing drum. While these are easily the coolest parts in this set, they're not what earned it a spot in today's video. As you reach the end of the build, you'll realize that you have 100 of these 1x1 round elements that seem to be left over. Well, on step 326, you'll realize that these are all meant to be added into the mixing drum to rattle around while it rotates and represent the concrete in the mixer. In fact, something similar can be spotted in this enormous 4,108-piece set from 2019. Much like the concrete mixer, you'll finish this build with what seems to be a tremendous excess of fairly large pieces. While mostly everything else in this video is talking about small parts, this set includes an extra 100 gray 2x2 round bricks that are shown in step 1000 and can be used as rocks or dirt for the machine to move around. As a side note, isn't it awesome how LEGO made this set exactly 1000 steps? Now, of course, when talking about loose bricks, I can't ignore the single most well-known example, the beautiful Ship in a Bottle set from 2018 and its infamous 284 clear blue studs that simulate water. At this point, it's just such an iconic step. I also want to mention the Botanicals line, because many of these sets seem to have a fondness for piles of loose bricks, and by many, I mean that there are at least 4 different botanical sets to feature a few dozen, or a few hundred, loose pieces. It all started with the very first set LEGO ever released under the Botanicals line, the Bonsai Tree, which famously requires builders to unceremoniously dump 200 mixed 1x1 round tiles into the pot at the very end of the build. This was a very surprising and funny step that was shared all over social media when this set was released. Not to be outdone, the Bird of Paradise released just 6 months later, and one-upped this by calling for 300 1x1 studs. Notably, this set has 1,173 pieces, which means that over 25% of all the pieces in this set are just these studs that are simply dumped into the base of the pot, which is pretty crazy if you think about it. The next year, LEGO released the Orchid, which changed things up a bit by using a comparatively measly 20 brown bricks to pile on top of the pot at the end. This was followed up by the Lucky Bamboo set in 2025, which changed the game once again by asking you to attach a total of 8 inverted round 2x2 plates to just as many regular round 2x2 plates, and then arrange them around the bottom of the plant to perfectly recreate how real bamboo is often kept, with rocks along the base. Now, while these loose bricks do add a nice touch of realism to a set, these steps have been seen by some as confusing, a waste of money on unnecessary bricks, or just a way for LEGO to artificially increase a set's piece count to charge more money. While I personally don't mind these steps, and I actually think they're pretty fun, I can totally understand why some people might be annoyed with them. And it actually seems like LEGO has come around on this, as recent offerings like the Japanese maple tree, the hibiscus, and the flowering cactus all managed to avoid using handfuls of loose bricks. But yet there's one botanical set that uses loose bricks in a rather different way. The Succulent set is one of the highest rated sets out there, and while 8 of the 9 plants click securely into their bases, there's one that's hiding a small secret. Near the end of book 3 of the instructions, you'll need to set 2 loose Technic axles underneath the plant, and then just Cover them up. At first, it seems like LEGO just decided to hide a couple Technic pieces, but there's actually a really good reason. Let me explain. The primary idea is that these are to connect the plants to one another, but the set seems to come with enough of these pieces to do so even before this step, so why are they here? Well, Technic axles are very, very small and incredibly easy to lose, so these are just here as a couple of spares. LEGO really does think of everything, and with the holidays coming up, if you're thinking about your wish list or gifts to give to others, check out the holiday sale on SpitBrix.com to get the perfect LEGO-themed poster for any LEGO fan, including yourself. Moving on, a slightly confusing step occurs in the City of Lanterns set. We previously looked at the bubble tea stand, but on the topic of loose Technic pieces, I need to point out another step here. Check out this step, where you're told to just dump 12 Technic pins into a small hole under the floor, which at first seems really odd. The instructions seem to provide no further explanation, so this was confusing to some builders, and for good reason. You see, it isn't until the very end of the second instruction booklet that LEGO chooses to include this image, which answers this question. But this is so long after the initial step that it could very easily fly under the radar of any builder. This set can be viewed as something of an introduction to modulars, and all of the smaller sub-builds can be detached and reassembled into an entire street instead of just a single building. To do this, just use these Technic pins to hold the bases together. This is actually a really cool design for a set, and something that I'd love to see LEGO do a little bit more of. Another thing that I want LEGO to do is include more hidden references in their sets, because they're super fun to find. Click here right now to see my favorite hidden secrets and references that have been found in LEGO sets, and be sure to tap the subscribe button for more LEGO videos.